Hello everyone and welcome back to another segment of Glassbox Education. My name is Dez Nwachi and today I'm going to be bringing you guys through a very simple cleanup, a little taper on the sides and a round shape overall. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, so we'll start off by spraying down our client. Enough, but not too much. If you start getting some moisture dripping along the face, be kind and give them a towel or something just to dry it off. So nice and consistent all the way around. We're going to be working a scissor technique throughout the top and the sides, and then have that blend into a beautiful taper along the sideburns and the back of the neck. So to start off, we're going to section off the head by initially splitting it back to front. Try your best to work with the natural flow of the hair. If the crown falls along your horizontal line and it doesn't come clean straight across, allow it to have its own natural fall and then follow that straight line right down till we reach the hairline at the back of the ear. We'll separate this back and this forward. Because the hair is already quite short, we're going to go ahead and work right along the back. Taking care of the area at the back of the head, starting with the round. Ooh. So before I start each section, I gotta make sure of my moisture. Beautiful. So from here, we're going to start working cross graduation right along this horizontal line, working right into the nape. Okay, working it nice and tight because we know we're going to bring a nice clean taper underneath. So working with diagonal sections, we're just removing some of the length behind the ear and working up. So as we're working up the head, we have a consistent guide from each previous section. So as we move up, we're going to comb up underneath, lifting up the previous section to meet with the new section we've just created. This giving us a guide underneath, giving us consistent balance throughout the haircut. So leaving a little bit of length as we're reaching the top of the head, but remembering to keep it nice and tight in the nape area. Thank you. So as you can see now, there's a little bit more length just in this area at the back. And this first section, or this first cut that I'm about to make, I don't really need to take any length from the round of the head here because we're already at the length that we're about to cut. So sometimes be mindful and be aware that it's not always necessary to cut hair. Sometimes it may be at the length, or sometimes some hair grows quicker than others, so you may not have to cut a certain area. So we're retaining a lot of the length as we get to the top of the head because we're trying to keep a nice strong shape at the crown area. So we're retaining a little bit of length to allow for a nice vertical shape. Going from something that is quite tapered and short to a nice textured length on top. So as we reach the midpoint, so as our section starts to reach the midpoint of the head on top, this will now be my last section over this hand side. And then we're going to switch to working left to right. But the great thing is, as we can see here, this is all we have left to work with over this side. Because we've already taken care of this area here. We now have a guide for this side, and we have a smaller area to work with. Sometimes people say they have a weaker side. For me, my left-hand side would be my weaker side. So that's why I leave myself a little bit less of a workspace area. And also a nice guide to follow in. So another thing you may notice before I continue is I'm only really cutting to my second knuckle, because the shape of your finger changes by the time you reach your second knuckle. So in effect, you're actually changing your cutting line, which is then changing the shape that we're trying to create. So working from the tip of your finger to your second knuckle allows you to keep a nice and straight cutting line and continue with consistency and balance. Nothing really left up here, and we can pull the rest of this down. Beautiful. From here, I'm going to take a small section from the back of the head. Before I do that, check the moisture consistency. We're drying her up around the ear. Keep that split for now, just so we know where it was. Okay, gently tilting your client's head over to give yourself a nice clear view of your workspace. We're going to create a nice small line at the back of the head, and this will now act as a guide for us as we're working through the sides. Okay, starting from right behind the ear, what I'm going to do is, using my index finger, I'm going to push the ear down and then take a nice small section behind the ear. And now we'll have a very small guide from the back, so your shortest hair from the back. Then we're going to cut a triangular shape, being longer from the back and going tighter as we get to the ear. So knuckles nice and tight to the head. So as we get to the sideburns, my knuckles nice and tight, because we're gonna have a nice clean transitional taper coming in there. Sorry, thank you. Okay, now that we have the sides done, quickly check through it. Make sure we have a nice horizontal clean shape all the way across. Beautiful. Now we'll head over to the other side and do the exact same thing. If you guys can see, sometimes before I tilt my client's head over, I'll use 2 fingers and place it on the other side of the neck to act as an indication that their head is about to move. I often see barbers or hairstylists can be quite aggressive when tilting or moving a client's head. And to make the experience the most comfortable and memorable experience, I would definitely suggest being kind and thoughtful when tilting your client's head. Okay, take a small section from the back to act as a guide, and we'll follow that into the front. So on this side, we're mindful of our fingertips being nice and tight to the front of the head, or along the ear, or along the hairline. We want that hair nice and short to give us that clean look in the front. Now our last section, or our last few sections, as we reach the top or the round of the head, are going to be quite horizontal diagonal. So we're trying to keep that buildup of weight around the area in which the head naturally rounds, just to give it that stronger shape. Lovely. Quickly cross-check. horizontally. If there's any small little hairs that are left slightly longer, you can nip them away. If there's not, we carry on. Okay. I'll bring this guy down, because he's a tall man. Okay, so spraying down the top of the head. And place your finger or your hand in front to kindly not spray it in their face. Beautiful. To start the top, we're going to make a profile guide about finger width right in the center of the head. So working from back to front, starting from my chest, using my thumb as a guide, I'll push the comb through to the front, leaving my thumb on the outer section of hair. I will pull it back slightly, and then using the fine teeth of my comb, I'll groom the rest of the hair away. I'll do the same. On this side. Now we have a nice clean section to start the top. We can now cut in the shape that we intend to create. So taking a few hairs from the back, just to make sure the transition is nice and smooth. And we're taking just a little bit off the top. It's just a cleanup. We're not going too short. We want to allow the texture within the top of the hair to show. So we'll need some length for my client to play with. Once we've cut our profile guide, we split it down the middle. We'll push one side over to the left, and then starting on the right hand side, we'll push everything forward over here and create a new section. So now we have a guide from our profile guide in the middle and some new hair to cut from the right hand side. And we'll continue this as we work through the side of the head. This will give us a nice square shape through the top. And then as I start to reach the round of the head, my sections will be pushed slightly outwards, giving it that soft round edge. So split it in the middle one more time, push one half over to the left, and create a new section on the right. I like to pinch the section just to make it easier so that I don't pick up any unwanted hair. And now in this section, what I'm going to do is I'm going to comb away from me thus now creating a rounder shape in the corners of the head. Now with my final section, I can brush everything forward and we'll pick everything up together. Push away. I can see my line. Once we've done one side of the head, we'll comb everything forward. And then we'll take a small horizontal section anywhere along the head. I like to take it at the apex or the highest point of the head. And this now will give me a guide from where I've cut to where I still need to cut. So from here, I can now take a small section of what I have already cut, so a guide, and now I will continue this guide right to the front of the head, split this in two, and following the exact same steps we took on the right hand side, we're going to do the same to the left, keeping consistent, keeping balanced. Check that moisture. Pulling the hair back, we can see the guide from the middle. Push all the hair back up. And now we'll continue this over the left hand side. So this first section over here, we're pushing away from myself just to keep that squareness through the middle of the head. But after this, everything is combed towards me to create that soft round shape in the corners. Exactly the same as the other side. The final section, we pick everything up together. So once we have our shape cut in, we can quickly go through and cross-check. You can cross-check it all in one go, or we can split it down the middle. Each way, and then we can work small horizontal sections from front to back, just cross-checking your shape. Once we've done one side, we'll brush it back down. And we'll do the same on the other. Now that all our scissor work is done, we're gonna go ahead and dry the head. I'm not gonna apply any product into the hair because I wanna see what shape it dries into naturally. And then afterwards, if I need to, I can respray the head with water and apply a little bit of styling product. Starting with a rough dry, I'm going to aim the focus of my air towards the crown, allowing it to dry at its natural fall. Starting with a high power, low heat. Now that we have completed our rough dry, now I'm gonna go ahead and do a slight bit of point cutting just to bring out the texture. So working horizontal sections from back to front, we can see a nice clean line. We're coming in right above and just breaking up that line. The more at an angle we go, the more depth or the more length we actually cut out of the hair. So try, if you're trying to retain a lot of the length, be more on the vertical. Still working from second knuckle to tip of the finger. And then we can come a little over the head. And now I'm going to attack this round of the head, just to make sure it's not too heavy. Bringing a nice transition into the sides. I'm gonna leave it there for now. If I want to do any more towards the end, we can do so. I'm gonna carry on to my clipper work. So to start off our taper, I'm going to create a small triangular incision, leaving a little bit of the hair along the front of the hairline and a little bit of hair along the ear. So you can go triangular or like slightly round triangular. You can choose whatever shape you want. I'm going for a half circle triangle sort of situation right now. Perfect. From here I'm going to put on the number 2 guard, and we're going to start with it open, and we're going to work from this corner right here to just above the ear. Now I chose the number 2 because I find that the guard itself, maybe a number 2 or a number 3, anywhere in between those, is the perfect size or is the perfect width that matches up to the tip of my fingers. So if I was working, when I was working my scissor work, if I was working really tight to my fingertips, this should blend in nice and neatly with my number 2. Put on the one guard, I'm going to open, start with an open, and we're going to use the corners of the clipper mainly here, because the more I use the full face, the easier it is for me to destroy this area that I'm working with. So just to have that precise cut, we're going to use as much of the corners as we can. So you're kind of chipping away at the hair. We'll close that down to the 1. Then I'll grab my 0.5 guard, and we're going to clip that on there, closed, using only the corners. We'll chip in here and really try to get a nice blur. We'll pop that off. Now flicking between the 0.5 open and closed. Now we can come back in with our scissor over comb and then slightly soften this weight line right there. Sorry, man. Thank you. Using the wide teeth of my comb because I find that it allows me to create a nice soft blend. It doesn't pick up every single hair with tension, which could result in me cutting an unnecessary line. You can also use the tip of your scissors just to get any darker areas. Really soften that out. We're not going to outline it just yet. I'm going to leave that to the end. We're just going to carry on to the taper on this side, and we're going to do the exact same thing. We're really being mindful to be really only using small flicks because we're only working in this small area, so there's no need for like a full wrist or an arm motion. Okay, we got that number 2 in. It's also quite important to consistently comb as we're doing the taper. So comb down the hair quite often, because some people have lighter hair just around the locks. So the smallest cut could make a big difference. So it's smart to see your work area. Can stretch out the skin slightly if you need to just see that area a little bit better. You can stretch it out and really pick at a certain dark spot that you're trying to soften. Now we'll continue right into the back, the very same as both the sides. We'll start off by making a kind of like a U at the back, because we have a little bit more space to work with. Putting on the number 2, and we're working just underneath the occipital bone, which is the sticky outy bone at the back of your head. Just underneath, and then we can do a little bit of scissor over comb to soften any weight lines. So working with the descending technique, so working down from 2.5, down to your 2, down to your 1.5, to your 1. This allows us to create a seamless, I find, softer blend, especially when it comes to the taper, because you're not creating any lines really, we're just removing hair. And also, if you're trying to leave like a smaller or shorter taper, down lower to the neck, it's also easier to work down than it is to push everything up and accidentally have a higher taper or a higher fade. When you get into the little crevices in the neck or just in the sides of the neck, use the corner of your tool or your clipper as well. If you need to, tilt the head back or tilt your head back, take a step back. Have a second look at the fade. And then go back into it. Refine. And finesse. Using the corners of the tool or your clipper, it actually allows me to work a little bit higher into the fade without making too much change. So we're chipping in without actually removing major bulk or length. Pop that off. And lastly, we'll flick the last little bit of a line out with the 0. And then we'll do a little trigger play between the 0.5 and the 0. To really just crisp that out. Make those heads turn. Quickly grab my white tooth comb and we're going to do some soft scissor over comb just over the occipital bone. To make sure of that nice transition. You never want to leave too much bulk in that occipital bone because as it grows out, it may grow out sticky outy in the back, and not too many people want that. Want a nice transition or a nice seamless blend. Beautiful. Finally, I pick back up my detailer. We're gonna make those edges pop. Being very gentle, we're using the corner of the detailer to carve in a nice hook along the front. We're not digging into the hairline, keeping it as long as possible. Now we can go in. And then right at the back of the ear, we'll comb everything down. I'm going to pull the ear back. Really just make that pop really nicely. You can bring the comb in over and just slightly raise over comb to take away any really long hairs. And then we're going to pull the ear over and comb all this hair back and create a nice clean line coming back here. And take away any excess hair just in the sides of the neck. And we'll follow through to the other side. We're going to do the exact same thing over here. So just to finish off our haircut today, we're going to apply a little bit of powder, not too much product because our client is on the go, just quick and messy. So just a little bit of L'Oreal Super Dust styling powder, just give you a little bit of volume and it allows you to bring out the texture within the hair. So you can get it right through the hair. There's not too much left in this guy. Beautiful. And then come in with your fingers and really just mess it up and bring out that texture. Can work a pinching technique as well if you really want to personalize specific texture points or spikes in certain areas. We can do like a rub pinch in and pull out. quick recap. So what we did was we sectioned off the head back to front, cutting the back section first, working cross graduation throughout the back, and then bringing a small guide from the back forward. We did forward graduation through the sides, creating sections that are slightly horizontal, diagonal as we get to the top. And then working on top, we did a profile guide, cutting the first two sections quite square, and then allowing a soft, rounder shape as we got to the sides of the head. Okay, this is our finished look with the taper on the back and sides. Thank you everybody for watching. My name is Dez Nwachi. Stay tuned.